din naman ang webinars via Zoom and Facebook Live dahil we overcome the time and distance constraints. This webinar is given for free to discuss OSC-related government issuances and other relevant OSC concerns to ensure the safety and health of our workers. For this year, we target to conduct at least 15 online public information campaigns, and today's webinar is the 6th episode. Therefore, we will be seeing each other virtually every week until July or August 2022. Today's discussion will focus on electrical safety. We know that the use of electricity is part of our everyday lives. It lights our home, powers our cell phone, the machines that we use at work, and so much more. However, it may also cause hazards such as fire and electrocution if improperly handled. It is indeed important that electrical designs comply with the requirements of the Philippine Electrical Code to ensure the safety and health of our family and our co-workers. As we continue to normalcy, the safety and health of our workers should be our top priority. Undeniably, we can only completely recover from this pandemic if we can ensure a safe and healthy working environment for our workforce. Kung napansin po ninyo, kahit na maliliit na pagawaan ay nag-invest sa disinfectant, thermometers at barriers. Parang ang COVID-19 po ay nagmulat sa ating mga mata, lalong-lalo na sa medyo maliliit na mga pagawaan sa kahalagahan ng OSC programming. Sana po ay hindi lang COVID-19, kundi lahat ng potential hazards ay may address ng ating mga occupational safety and health programs. As I have mentioned earlier, electric safety is very important, and I am very sure that our invited subject matter expert for today, Engineer Aldous Choice Sagire, can help us improve the electrical safety component of our OSC programs and policies. Before I end, I would like to invite all of you to collaborate with us in a very important OSC activity. The Department of Labor and Employment is one of the key partners of the ILO, or International Labor Organization, in implementing a project called Bringing Back Jobs Safely Under the COVID-19 Crisis in the Philippines, Rebooting Small and Informal Businesses Safely and Digitally. This project endeavors to improve the OSC conditions in the informal sector and the micro, small, and medium enterprises, and help mitigate the negative socioeconomic impact of the COVID-19 crisis. The Occupational Safety and Health Center in particular is one of the focal institutions for the conduct of the ILO training on the prevention of COVID-19, applying the ILO work improvements in small enterprises or WISE methodology. The target participants are workers and employers from 10,000 informal sectors and MSMEs outside Metro Manila. We need the support of all us advocates to ensure the success of this program. We urge you to join the regional OSNETs or DOLE accredited safety training organizations to be one of the resource speakers for the at least 1,000 batches of training that we must conduct. We know that the financial returns for you is indeed minimal, but this could be part of corporate social responsibility, especially for large enterprises. This is an opportunity for your company to help improve the OSC conditions in neighboring informal and micro establishments. And more importantly, the establishments that form part of your entire chain. Sa pamamagitan po nito, ay maaari nating buhayin muli ang Big Brother, Small Brother program kung saan ay tinutulungan ng mas malalaking kumpanya ang maliliit na pagawaan upang mapabuti ang working condition sa buong bansa. At 12 noon today, May 20, 2022, we will be having a virtual meeting with the International Labor Organization and Occupational Safety and Health Networks to discuss the possible areas of collaboration between the Department of Labor and Employment and all advocates from the private sector. Sana po ay maka-attend din kayo. Ginawa po namin itong alas 12 para maka-attend kahit yung mga may pasok sa trabaho. Sana lang po ay mag-lunch tayo ng maaga para hindi naman tayo gutumin habang nagmi-meeting. With that, maraming salamat po. Again, welcome to this to the 6th episode of our webinar. Maraming salamat at mabuhay po tayong lahat na mga occupational safety and health champions. Magandang umaga pong muli.
Thank you very much, Sir Jerry. So again, nabanggit nga ni Sir Jerry that this OSHC webinar series is the 6th part. And for this day, yung focus ng ating webinar is electrical safety. So the electrical safety will be discussed by Engineer Aldous E. Zaguirre from First Power Electrical Services and Trading Corporation. Engineer Zaguirre, just take it away, sir.
Hello, good morning. Magandang umaga po. Okay. Yeah, I'm Choi Zaguirre. So you feel free to use my nickname. Medyo mahirap i-pronounce my real name. So, ayan. Let me just can I share my screen na, Timothy?
Yes, sir. Go ahead po.
Sige. Ayan. Salamat. Okay. So, ayan po. Again, good morning to everyone. Thank you very much for inviting us to speak over in your weekly program. Special thanks to Director Noel Binag of the Oshc Center, and also to Sir Dennis Aquino, who have invited us over here to share some learnings on electrical safety. Together with Sir Dennis, we represent the Institute of Integrated Electrical Engineers. We are actually with the Electrical Safety Committee This is the committee in charge by the organization, by the society, to focus on providing safety, electrical safety information, education to our to the Philippines or to the public. Okay, so that is the task of this of our committee. And yeah, today, so we are invited here to discuss this topic, a kind of technical topic to everyone. And I would assume that many of you in this attending here today are safety practitioners. So probably this is gonna be a kind of familiar presentation to you. And at the same time, it's probably gonna be a paradigm shift, okay, in your experiences with regards to electrical safety trainings. Okay. So in your Bosch, in your Oshc practices in your respective workplaces, you do safety programs, Oshc programs, which we are also trying to espouse now with the ESE or Electrical Safety Committee of IIEE. Okay, so you'll see that later on. And of course, there will be some specifics or many specifics about the electrical application. So without much further, so I'll let us start now with the presentation or with the seminar. Okay. Um, there. Okay. So in this discussion today, we have ourselves guided by two standards. Okay. Of course, we have here as the overall standard the DOLE Occupational Safety and Health Standards um, ruling us, okay, which is a guidance or a rule providing, okay, or requiring workplaces, employers to provide a safety workplace for our workers or for our people. And at the same time, this presentation is also guided by NFPA 70E, okay, which is the standard for electrical safety in the workplace, which also very much aligned with the DOLE Rule 1000, okay, or 1000. It requires or it provides companies to provide a practical safe working areas for the employees, particularly with hazards or risk arising from use of electricity. Okay, so there's really that strong alignment in these two standards. Okay, and then also the enabling laws. Okay, uh, for our discussion or for the observance of electrical safety is of course the RA 7920, which is this has been made into effect since 1995. Okay, and it's the guiding law, it's the enabling law in the practice of electrical engineering in the Philippines, okay, which covers licensing of the practitioners, defining who are the qualified practitioners in this particular field, and also it calls for the application or the observance or compliance with what we call the PEC or the Philippine Electrical Code. Okay, particularly in our topic today, we are going to be using the part 1 or the 2017 edition. And for your information, there are two parts of the PEC. The part 2, the latest revision was for launch in December of 2021. So very, very fresh. Okay. And of course, as I have earlier mentioned, we are also guided by the Oshc standards. Okay, so I'm sure a lot of you or most of you are familiar with these rules as drafted by DOLE, particularly by the Oshc Center. Okay. Also, let me start off with some basics in electricity, which is number 1 is the electrical current. Okay. We all know we have different terms. Meron tayong tinatawag na voltage or yung voltahe, current or the kuryente, resistance, okay? So insulation. So these are the really common terms. that we use in electricity or electrical engineering. But with regards to electrical safety, one that really affects us or impacts us is what we call the electrical current, or yung symbol na I when we do the calculations, or when we measure it, yung unit of measure na ginagamit natin is the amperes or amps. Or in Tagalog, yung mga electrician, you'll hear them saying yung amperahe. Okay? So that's the flow of electric charge through a conductor. Okay? So yung mga napag-aralan natin noon, yung mga molecules, electrons, protons. So the electrons bump each other, okay? And that activity represents the flow of current within the conductor. And do not forget, kaya tayo nakukuryente or kaya natin nararamdaman ito, it's because our body is considered as a conductor. Okay? So siya yung dahilan bakit nakukuryente tayo. And later on, I have that illustration showing yung flow of current in our bodies. Okay? And a few more terms dito. As I've said, the conductors, it's the one that allows the flow of current. Okay? So, yung mga linya ng kuryente natin, they're made up of copper. And if it's an overhead line, sa mga power utilities, they're made up of aluminum. Okay? So, yan yung dalawa na pinaka-common. When in a commercial, say a building or an industrial facility, usually makikita natin coppers. The ones that are inside the breakers, inside the transformers, motors, generators, yung mga winding yan, they're mostly made up of coppers. They have to be conductors to allow current to flow. And what impedes the flow of electricity or current is what we call insulators. Okay? So yan, siya naman yung pumipigil. That's the outer coating that we see in most of our wires. I said most, and I didn't say I didn't say all, kasi some of our wires, especially mga overhead, wala siyang insulation. They're bare. Okay? So, yan, kaya medyo iingatan nyo talaga yung mga overhead na yan. Aside from they are running at higher voltages, okay, they're also, many of them have no insulation. So they have no protection. Okay? So, ayan. So, yung mga nakikita nyo sa mga wiring nyo sa bahay, na pula, dilaw, blue, itim, white, yan. Yan yung mga insulator na ginagamit. And there are some na, what we call as semiconductors. Okay? So, it depends. It depends on the environment that they are in. Okay? Yung mga solar panels, yung mga PV, yan, the one that collects the energy from the sun, they are considered as semiconductors, and they become conductor or insulator depending on the situation or the activity that they are in. Okay, ito naman is a simple electrical power system, and many of us are probably familiar with this. The power or the energy starts with the power plants. Okay, so which is mostly nakikita natin in rural areas. There's what you call the thermal power plant, the hydroelectric power plant, the solar power plant. So yan yon. That's what we call the power generation. And for them, for that energy produced by these power plants, they're transferred or transported via transmission lines na tinatawag natin. So yung facility that are operated by what we call the NGCP or the National Grid Corporation of the Philippines. So yeah, so they are our transmission line operator. So the power plants would generate electricity at medium voltage, 11,000 volts, 13,000 volts. Okay? And for it to be able to transport it into the load centers sa mga cities where we are at, okay, they have to be stepped up into higher voltages in thousands of volts, 230,000 volts, 138,000 volts, 500,000 volts. Yan. So they get transported into these huge transmission lines, okay, And then at the commercial centers, okay, so mga load centers, they're gonna be distributed by distribution utilities. So yan yung mga sa probinsya, you see the electric cooperatives, private distribution like yung Visayan Electric in Cebu, Davao Light in, of course, in Davao, Meralco here in Metro Manila. They're what you call as the distribution utilities. So they distribute powers to the different customers, loads ang tawag natin diyan sa electrical. So may building, factories, and of course, sa mga bahay natin. But what I want you to focus on, have an appreciation with the components that is involved in the delivery of power to us. Particularly, the amount of energy that is present. Okay? And say a transformer, we take a transformer, a power transformer, ito. Okay? That kind of a power transformer or even these distribution transformers na nasa mga poste natin, they store, they contain, they hold energy in them. And compare that energy, okay, with the energy that we can take in our body. Okay? So yung capacitance ng katawan mo. Okay? In the case of electrocution, that energy present in these electrical components would tend to be transferred into our body, which obviously is much inferior with these kinds of equipment. And so that's why our body, particularly some our organs like the heart, cannot take that energy transfer. And so we get injured or knock on wood, we die. Okay? Kasi nga hindi natin makaya that energy transfer. So again, this power system, that's the connection naman in our discussion today about safety. So when you look at an electrical equipment, you try to imagine how much energy is present in that equipment and the danger of that energy being transferred to our workers or say technician or whoever is going to be involved in the management or handling of that equipment. Okay? So yeah, in NFPA, there are 3 identified or categories of electrical hazards that were identified. One is the electrical shock. Okay, so yun yung sinasabi natin na nakukuryente tayo. There is that transfer of current or the flow of current in our body, and you see there's some statistics. Okay, and there's also what you call the arc flash, and related to the arc flash is what we call the arc blast. Okay, yung flash is parang kidlat. It's a flash. It's a spark. Okay, of involving very high temperature. You see there about 35,000 Fahrenheit or in terms of centigrade or degrees centigrade. And in an arc blast, okay, it starts with an arc blast, but there's so much energy involved in the event na the equipment or whatever there is cannot contain that energy. Okay, and it results into a blast, which creates or makes or creates or deliver more damage. Okay, so sumabog na siya, nandiyan masisira na niya yung breaker, yung enclosure, yung panel board, and with that amount of energy, it's gonna create shrapnels. Okay, and loud noise, which would further aggravate the hazard or the damage to the person. Okay, and then there are some more numbers showing the effects of current or shock on a person. But what's important here, and let me direct you here to which is probably the most fatal, yung heart failure. 0.5 amps, napakaliit. Okay, so 500 milliamperes. Okay. So with that amount of current flowing through our body, specifically through our heart, and that gets sustained for say several seconds, there will be a danger of cardiac arrest or heart failure on the person. Okay? So kaya mapapansin nyo ngayon in new constructions, okay, mapabahay, mapahotel or commercial building, sa mga toilet, okay, put against outlet or CO, kasi nga mag-blower yung babae, that device, yung GFCI. Okay? Kasi nga, so mapapansin mo siya, it's like a small push button in between the sa mga saksakan. And ang function niyan is to limit this, yung leakage current na ganyang amount. Because at that amount, your circuit breaker is only designed to protect you against short circuit, the person or the facility. But at this level of leak, current leak, the circuit breaker cannot detect that. Okay? Kaya may mga bagong device, which is what we call the GFCI or the ground fault circuit interrupter. Okay? And they would detect this kinds of current at this amount. Okay? So even mapababae, mapalalaki, it's the same. Okay? 0.5 amps lang yan. Okay? And these are the injuries that you could experience. So yun nga, as I keep on saying, the shock, okay? In the case of the arc flash or arc blast, you can experience second degree burns, okay? Lalo na kung talagang grabe siya. And falls or trips, o yung mababagsak. Bakit? Kasi the person is working overhead, say naka-scaffolding siya, okay, or basta nasa ibabaw siya, nakaranas ng shock, okay? Hindi naman siya nakuryenteng na-damage or napaso because of that. But because of the gulat, mapapabitaw siya, madudulas siya, and he'll fall down, malalaglag. Okay, that's why it's also being counted as an electrical related injury. Yung number 4 naman dyan, especially during construction, nakakalat yung mga kable, okay, for the tools, okay, and there will be this worker working and matitisod ngayon siya ng mga kable na yun, and without protection, say a hard hat, he can also get injured. Okay, bukol or sugat sa tuhod, sa kamay, sa braso. So yan, so they're also being counted as an electrical related injury. Okay? So ito yung sinasabi ko na electrical shock, mapadikit ka. This one is medyo, I'd say na exaggerated because if you see a wire, hindi ka naman talaga hahawak doon. But even if it's an ungrounded or a faulted equipment, say a transformer, na medyo matagal na siyang ginagamit, put into service, so syempre nag-deteriorate na yung mga insulation niya, and that deterioration of insulation that portion pwedeng dumikit into the body of the transformer and mahahawakan ngayon ng mga personnel sa labas. And if they don't have a good insulation to the ground, basa ang paa, basa ang sapatos, then current can definitely flow through their body. And worse, dadaan dun sa puso nila, and as I have said, it can cause heart failure or cardiac arrest to the person. Okay, and the severity is of course depends on the amount of energy that flowed, that transferred to the body of the person, how long. Okay, kung hindi agad siya natanggal or napabitaw with that source. Okay, either the source or on the grounded metal. Okay, so ayun, so mas nababad ngayon siya, mas maraming current or mas maraming energy nag-flow to his body, then that's gonna define, okay, yung impact or the effect to the person. Is in your facilities, in your factories, okay, so you have here your panel board, switch gear, Okay, yan yung mga switch gear nyo, transformer, ayan. You have your electrical equipment. And there's what we call distances from that. Yung pinakamalapit is what we call the restricted approach boundary. Okay, in normal conditions, we should not be going beyond that. Pas malapit to the equipment. You have the limited approach boundary and then the arc flash boundary. Depending on the voltage of the system, which would define, and then also again, the amount of energy that can be present there, that would define those distances. So again, your LEPs or your licensed electrical practitioners will be the best person to tell you ano yung mga boundaries na yan. So that can be from 1 meter to 3 meters, depending on the voltage and the amount of energy that they will compute. And by the way, it's already being required on the designs. Diba? So if you're familiar with what we call the schedule of loads sa design ng mga PEC Part 1 of 2017 edition requires now the computation of these things. Okay? So dati kasi tumitigil kami, yung mga electrical practitioners, designers, tumitigil sa short circuit analysis. But with the increased awareness in safety, PEC1 requires now to going beyond the computation ng short circuit analysis, and it's now requiring the computation of incident energy. Later on, maririnig nyo na naman ulit sa akin yun, the computation of incident energy, which would again define these spaces, these boundaries, and kung ano yung isusuot ng tao, okay, or the technician that would be doing work in this particular equipment. Okay, so ayan, so it can start with that computation, or you can refer to this table 130.4 of the NFPA 70E. Okay, so be careful. There are 3 books being published by NFPA. So NFPA means National Fire Protection Association. Okay. So tatlo libro niyan, 70, which is National Electrical Code. So doon naka-pattern yung Philippine Electrical Code naman natin. There is what you call the 70B, as in boy, which is for maintenance. Okay? Tayo, in the electrical safety, we use as a reference, or we should use as a reference, or we recommend you to use as a reference yung NFPA 70E ECO. Okay? So, yun naman is about electrical safety in the workplace. And again, table 130.4 is contained on that particular standard. Okay? As well as number 3, the PPEs, 130.8 naman. Oh, mamaya, in my later slides, I will have all those, I'll show you those tables. But of course, again, medyo mabilisan tayo. So I suggest keeping a copy of this, of this standard. Okay? When we go to burns, so yan, as I've shown kanina, electrical burns, unang-una, nakahawak ka nga dun sa kuryente, okay? Pinakamababang mangyayari sa iyo is this. Kung saan pumasok yung kuryente, masusunod ka. Okay? So first degree, second degree, sustained siya. But the really fatal na mga na burn is what we call the arc flash. As I have mentioned, it involves up to about 20,000 degrees centigrade. Okay? So if you're in your computers now, try to Google the surface temperature of the sun and make a comparison. Okay? Surface temperature of the sun as computed by NASA is about 5,000 degrees centigrade. At on an arc flash na situation, it can reach, the temperature can reach up to 20,000. So you just imagine what damage it can cause to your body. Okay? And then lastly, a thermal contact burn. So yun nga, nag-overheat yung motor, nag-overheat yung transformer, napadikit ka, and you can burn, or you can feel that you can have that kind of an injury. Okay, so ayan, so this is an sample of an arc flash. Okay, so it's there are two contacts na mapapansin nyo. This is a switch yard, so may contact dito and then there's a contact here. Okay, with that several meters, maybe about 3-4 meters of separation between the contacts. Current, nagflow pa rin yung current because there's so much energy that is present, and with the amount of voltage, mapapansin mo napakataas ng mga insulation nila. That will tell us na mataas yung voltage dyan. So with that amount of voltage, which is the electromotive force, and the amount of energy present, the EMF, the voltage was able to push that current to transfer into dun sa kabilang contact. Okay, and that transfer ng, and makikita mo that yun yung nag-flash, yun yung parang kidlat na lumabas. Okay, so that can also happen to you, to a person, especially that is not well protected. So nagbukas ng switchboard, nakita mo doon, nandun lahat ng mga bus bar. The person which is not protected, makikita siya as another conductor, and if it's that amount of voltage and energy, so that can happen. So, tatalon ngayon dun sa tao. Okay, further on arc flash, some more definitions. So as I've said, the arc flash, we discussed that in the prior slide. Flash protection boundary. Okay, so it's the distance, so yung prior slides din. Okay, and the boundary is defined by the calculated incident energy, which again, pag nakalkula nyo na yan, your engineers can refer to that table 130 ng NFPA and define that. So, di ba, in your own facilities, you've got your switchboard, your switch gear. Minsan may nagguguhit kayo dun di ba? So, nandun yung pedestal ng equipment, nilalagyan nyo ng guhit. And that guhit, hindi siya basta-basta pinipintukahan. So, you have to refer that to your LEP. Licensed Electrical Practitioner, gaano kalayo ba natin ilalagay yon? Okay? So it's not there just for the sake of may guhit. Okay? Kasi baka mamaya ginuhitan nyo lang, high voltage pala yon, and it's too short, and it still is unsafe for the persons passing by the equipment. And obviously, that particular equipment should not be present dun sa madalas daanan ng common personnel. Okay? But still, the authorized personnel who has to have access there has got to be reminded na hanggang gaano kalapit or kalayo dapat siya from the equipment. And that's the purpose of those lines. Minsan nga, pinipintukahan niyo pa ng green yung space, di ba? And then yung edge, the boundary is with yellow. Okay? On an arc flash, as I have said, keep on saying kanina pa, extreme heat is present there, about 20,000 degrees centigrade. There will be intense light. Okay, so you'll get that hazard or danger from burning because of the extreme heat. There is a danger or hazard on intense light. That's why there has to be a protection, an eye protection on the personnel. Okay. Shrapnels, sound waves, pressure waves, and molten metal. Okay, so that's why you have to completely protect yung mga tao nyo. And in addition to this, since it's the person will be involved in high voltages, electricity, you also have to protect him against electrical shock. Okay? So may insulation din dapat na protection yung tao. And again, later on, I'll show you what are those. So effects to the body. So yun nga, because of these things from an arc flash, these are the effects naman sa tao. A third-degree burn, hearing damage, vision damage because of that very, very high blast injuries, lung injury. Okay? lung injury because of the superheated vapor that can be present because of the blast. Okay? So that extreme high temperature vapor pwede niya masinghot and burning the organs inside the body. Okay, which would asphyxiate or mahihirapan siyang huminga and can also become fatal. Okay, and pressure wave injuries on the muscles, tissues ng katawan. So you see there's a lot of damages that can be caused, which I'm sure we don't really need to detail here, can be really aside from man-hour na downtime ninyo, financial impact, okay, to your respective companies, which can go to the millions kung talagang delikado or fatal yung nangyari. Here is a video of an arc blast. Okay, so kanina arc flash, ngayon naman ito yung arc blast. Arc flash muna. A lot of energy, and you see all those flying molten metals, shrapnels. So nakaharap talaga doon yung tao. So that's the facility. That's why there's really that much blast, okay, that occurred. Okay, and so with this, how do you now protect your personnel against shock and arc flash blast? Okay, so yun nga, you perform. You start with your engineering. You analyze what's the shock hazard, what's the flash hazard, calculate your short circuit current, calculate your incident energy, define, and then number 2, define that boundary around the equipment, and with your calculation of the incident energy, it will also define anong PPE ang pupwede on the person. Okay? So, hindi basta na kapag arc flash shoot ka, ubra na. May mga ratings din yun. Kumbaga, sa mga equipment natin, may kilowatts, may kVA. Dito naman, may calories na involved. Okay? So, the flash hazard analysis will tell you the arc flash boundary, incident energy, the working distance, and the PPE, as I have said. And yung categories, 1, 2, 3, 4 yan, ito na, on the next slide. Okay? So you see here, incident energy, yung pinakamababa, category 1, is just only from 0 to 4, and then greater than 4 to 8, greater than 8 to 20 cal. Now, beyond 40 cal, it still is possible. O pwede pa rin yan, lalo na if the person is working on transmission lines. And there are PPEs that is rated up to 100 cal. However, we don't recommend. We only want you to look up to category 4. Because going beyond category 4, even if those PPEs are available, it still is very fatal, and the assurance of really protecting the person is not that high. Masyadong mababa yun. So there's really not much of a confidence that the person can still be protected beyond 40. Okay? So, but kung talagang pilitan, well, kailangan, you really have to contact, okay, the qualified persons to make the evaluation, to make the assessment, okay, put up the program, how are we gonna approach the job, and then how are we gonna protect our personnel. But again, let me repeat, that we only recommend you to be looking up to category 4. Okay? Beyond that, it's going to be really very dangerous. Now, ano ba itong mga calories ito? And as I've said, these calories are a measure of energy. Okay? Because when we talk of these things, it's that amount of energy is what's going to damage the body. So, tulad dyan, you have a picture there, lighter or candila. A candle, you light it up, Okay? So, yung daliri mo, idikit mo or hawakan mo yung blue flame. Hold it for 1 second. Whatever burn that you will feel doon, medyo mahapdi yan, medyo masakit, di ba? Medyo matagal mo mararamdaman. That's 1.2 calories per centimeter squared of energy that you have absorbed. Okay? So medyo mahapdi na yun. Just imagine. Okay? So talagang masusunog na yung masusunog na yung katawan mo. Okay? And these are the types of categories in accordance to this of PPEs in accordance to these categories. Okay? Hanggang dito sa talagang mukha ng astronaut, yung technician with all the insulation for thermal shock protection naman, which is on the hands, the rubber gloves, the leather protector, and sa footwear, which is the electric shoe. Okay? Rated depending on the kung anong voltahe nung i-handle yung equipment up to 20,000 volts. Okay? So there's that shoe. Question, how does it compare with an EH-rated na shoe? EH-rated shoe has an insulation sa ilalim lang. But depending on yung sa ibabaw ng sapatos, depending na yun on the material. A dielectric shoe will give you insulation around the foot. Okay? So it can be yung siya mismo yung sapatos or it can be an overshoe. Meaning to say, you've got your sapatos and isusuot mo siya sa loob ng dielectric shoe. It's like a bota yun sa mga fireman, gano'n. But this one has a certain dielectric property to protect the person. So, kasi that's yung bakit sa paa and sa kamay. Because kamay yung hahawak sa components, sa bus bar, sa breaker, sa motor. And yung paa naman is yung nakakabit or nakadikit sa ground. So if you have to block, you have to provide insulation so that current will not flow dun sa katawan ng tao. And the person has to layers, okay, rubber insulating gloves and the dielectric shoe. Okay, so ayan lang just to identify the different PPEs na suot-suot niya. You got the head protection, you got the face shield for arc flash, and then you've got eye protection dyan. Now, yung face shield, usually ang complaints sa face shield and madilim, di ba, mga electrical rooms natin, di mga well-lighted yan eh. Yan kasing liwanag ng mga opisina. Okay? But it's got to be amber or hindi po pwedeng clear na clear like his goggles. Kasi nga because of that flash, you also have to protect yung mata ng tao. Okay? You got the head, face, and neck protection. So you got this hood sa body, you got the suit, rated nga, category 1, 2, 3, and 4. Rubber insulating gloves, leather protection. So dalawang klaseng gloves yan. The rubber gloves will provide the insulation. The leather protection will protect the rubber gloves. Kasi nga, the person will be involved on handling wires, knives, tools, which are sharp, and po pwedeng mahiwa yung rubber insulation. Pag nahiwa yon, so wala na siya insulation. So the leather gloves will provide that mechanical protection on the rubber gloves. Okay? And then insulated tools. Diba? So usually mga electrician natin, lumang-luma na yung mga tools nila. So biyak-biyak na yung insulation. Okay? Or napakadumi na. Okay? So even that dumi, okay, so will deteriorate the electric properties of the tool. So it's got to be well maintained as well. And you see sa ko kanila, the electric footwear, and you see that matting. Okay? Which doon ngayon tatapak yung tao. Again, it adds additional insulation to the person. So yung iba, dala-dala yan, bit-bit, pag magsiservice siya ng panel na yon, ilalatag yun ngayon doon to provide insulation to him. Okay? So, ayan. So this is the complete. Okay? The complete na protection for the person. But of course, even kung titingnan mo, napakadami na niyang suot-suot, even provided with that, we still have to ensure that they energize yung circuit. Okay? If he really has to work on an energized circuit, then you have to be, again, more careful into that. You have to creating a program and make sure he's trained, well qualified for the job, and really well protected. Okay? So ibang usapan yun. Pagka live works ang gusto niyang gawin or kailangan niyang gawin. Okay? And these are the standards that we follow. Oshc 1910, which is particularly for electrical safety. As I keep on saying, NFPA 70E, and of course, the Philippine Electrical Code 2017, which again, the change or the new thing here on this version or this revision is the arc flash hazard analysis. Okay? So some contents on the NFPA, ito. So I guess this one is you're very familiar with this. This is also being called by the Oshc standard natin dito sa Philippines, which is the employer responsibility and the employee responsibility. Okay? Employer responsibility is to protect their personnel, putting up policies, okay, training with their personnel, providing PPEs. Ang empleyado naman, or the worker, is required to comply with all of this. Okay? So it's a protection. It's a two-way relationship. It's a protection for both sides. Okay? But beyond that protection is for the employers, us. It's the care. Okay? Our care, our showing of care to our employees. Of course, they have families na kailangan nilang uwiin at the end of their shift. Okay? So we have to ensure that they will go home safely. Hindi kulang ng kamay, kulang ng ilong, kulang ng mata. And kung anong itsura niya nung kinuha natin in the morning, siya din yung itsura niya in the afternoon or sa gabi pag uwi niya. Okay? So yung malasakit natin, that's beyond, personally to me, beyond protection of the company, beyond the protection, okay? It's our malasakit to our employees. And remember, they are our most important resource in our companies. Okay? And also, it calls for hazard elimination. Okay? That's the utmost. Yan yung first priority natin. Hindi yung and we all know this in our hierarchy. Hindi yung pag-identify or pag-provide ng PPE. Providing PPE comes the least. Okay? In electrical safety, how do you eliminate hazard? Patayin mo yung kuryente. Okay? Make sure that there's no energy present kung magtatrabaho yung tao. Okay? That's your priority. And if not, then doon ka magsisimula mag-isip depending on your setup in your facility and how will you be able to eliminate the hazards. Okay? Yan. Providing electrical safe working condition. Okay? Employees working within the limited approach boundary. Okay? And he's not going to be exposed into energized equipment or conductors. Okay? Ito yung sinasabi ko. We're very much familiar, or many of you are very much familiar with creating a safety program because of our learning in Bosch, our learning in Oshc. Okay? Sa ES, we also have to develop that. The same approach. The same approach is that the only difference is that it's very, very particular, very, very specific into electrical application. So you will need, okay, and I'm sure in your engineering group, you will need the help of your LEPs or the licensed electrical practitioners, okay, which can help guide you. Okay, sinasabi ko nga kanina, may mga calculations involved on this, So sila yung magiging resource persons nyo. Okay, on this. Now, if you don't have that, then definitely you have your IIE, the Professional Organization of Electrical Engineers, to assist you. Okay, and you can ask people in IIE, and I'm sure they'll be very gracious. They're always gracious and generous on sharing some of the knowledge in the, again, yun nga, an objective is to help protect our people against hazards of electricity. Okay, so maintenance also, okay, condition ng mga equipment, ng mga wiring, okay, ng mga protective devices. Hindi yan pag kinabit mo diyan, yung kable after 30 years mo na babalikan kasi that's its lifespan. Hindi. You got to develop a maintenance program also for them, develop a testing program on to determining the integrity of their insulation, their performance, yan, their reliability. Okay? And awareness and self-discipline. Yeah, hindi mo maaalis eh. Okay? So, nagmamadali, tinatamad, or for whatever reason, may magdadahilan pa dyan, I've been a technician in this company for 20 years, 15 years. Ganito practice ko, hindi ako nadadali. But minsan lang yun eh. Okay? Minsan kang matamaan, matsambahan, hindi mo alam kung anong mangyayari sa iyo. Okay? That tsamba, okay? Yun yung iniiwasan natin dyan. So, we gotta be creative. In a way, we got to be a marketing person then, promoting yung awareness. So, makikita mo, we put those posters. Later on, I've got some samples here. We put posters in our facilities, malapit sa equipment. That's part of your awareness program. Okay? And then, yeah. Ayun. Okay? Safety principles. So when you create your safety program, yan, so you establish your safety principle, you establish your control, and then you establish your procedure. Okay? In the principle, ano ba yung masasabi nyo na electrically safe or work condition yung lugar na isi-service ng tao. Okay? The planning of all the jobs. So, paano nyo ginagawa yon? Anticipation of unexpected events. So, that's going to form part of your ES or your program principles. And in controls, okay, one is kailangan ma-instill as a discipline to the people na palaging i-assume that the equipment or the wires or the cable is always energized. Okay? In that, pag pinapatay mo yung or dinede-energize your circuit, it's a potentially hazardous job. Okay? Hindi dahil ang trabaho mo ay magpatay ng breaker, you're safe. Okay? That mere action of making contact or removing contact ng breaker, yon, that's a potential source of an arc flash. Kasi nga, naghihiwala yung dalawang contact. And you see on the video earlier that arc flash occurs in that area. Okay? So that's a potentially hazardous. So in that mere seconds or a minute at the most of shutting off, therefore, you have to protect pa din your personnel. Okay? And on the procedures, yeah, yung risk assessment, okay? And then the locking out and the tagging out of the equipment or the circuit, the job briefing, which is very important, especially if you're working with subcontractors or outside or third-party service providers. Okay? So the risk, yan, as I've said, in the risk assessment, alam nyo to, you identify the hazards, you assess the risk, okay? You implement risk control, okay, according to the hierarchy. So very, very similar. Ito. You're very much familiar with this hierarchy Okay, and again, in your Bosch or in your Oshc construction firm kayo. And again, utmost, as I've said, is elimination. In electrical, that's the energization. The energization of the circuit and grounding of the circuit. Kasi pinatay mo na, tataka kayo, pinatay mo na yung breaker, nakuryente pa rin. It's because, as I've said at the start, the transformer or the cables was able to store energy. Paghipo ng tao without PPE, that dahil conductor yung tao and it's got a certain capacitance, that energy would immediately or instantaneously transfer to the person. And that person will take that, kung napalaking energy, still that energy can endure the person. Pinakamababa nga yung paso ang aabutin niya. Okay? But if it's a lot, okay, power transformer siya, he can have a heart failure still. Okay? So it's the energization and grounding of the equipment. Okay? Safety planning. Okay? So similar again your Oshc safety planning, but again, we will include here yung yun nga, yung mga procedural ng electrical, the energization, checking on the breaker, tama ba siya before you touch it, is it of good shape, and make sure whoever is doing the safety planning is by a qualified person for that particular job. Okay, say he is a technician for low voltage, he likely may not be familiar in operating medium voltage or higher voltage applications. But iba yun. Ibang knowledge is contained or required in those kinds of application. Okay? Because dyan, sa high voltage, there's what we call now the partial discharges, the higher chances of arc flash and arc blast. So, medyo kailangan dyan qualified na talaga yung tao mo for that application. Hindi porke na matagal na siya nagtatrabaho in low voltages and he'll be able to deliver the job required on medium voltage or high voltage. Job briefing, everyone who's going to be involved in the work. Ito, unfortunately, I don't really see much facilities using the locking out and the tagging out. This is good kasi you put this on the equipment that's being serviced and you also put it on the protective device or disconnecting device servicing the equipment. Yung breaker niya, you'll tag it, you'll put a padlock, so ibinaba, disconnect nung serviceman, nung worker. So he'll tag it that this part is being serviced, so do not operate. Okay? Kasi yung motor may be several meters away, napakalayo from the breaker. So nakatag siya, do not service, and in case of you should contact this person on local or cell phone number, and it's got a padlock. Yung susi ng padlock is being held, okay, hawak-hawak yan ng tao. Okay, na nagsiservice doon. Then he does his job. He also tags the equipment being serviced. Okay? So he do his work. Okay? After he's done, then he takes these things. Unlike nung wala niyan. Okay? Nandoon yung tao, nagsiservice ng motor, napakalayo. Somebody within the same group or whatever, magtataka, ba't nakababa itong breaker na to? Hindi dapat nakababa ito. Turns it on, yung kamay pala niya nandoon sa loob ng makina. Okay? And just imagine what will happen next. Okay? So let's implement this lockout tag out. So it can be, of course, there are devices being sold in the market, lockout tag, but you can improvise. Okay? Ang objective lang naman talaga nito is to prevent that accidental energization of the circuit, and then telling people that this particular circuit is being serviced. You can improvise this, okay, as long as the objective is being met. Okay, and the training. Okay, as I said kanina, You need to have qualified people working on the particular job, and therefore they have to be trained on that particular job. Okay? Ito naman is a slide on if you're engaging third-party service provider, yung host employer ikaw yung kumontrata. Okay? So your job is to inform your subcontractor or contractor of the possible hazards that can be involved in the job. Okay? Okay? And then on the contract employer, ang trabaho naman niya is to understand well the presence of these hazards and communicating that to his workers. And of course, everything has to be documented. Okay? So Article 120, of course, this is a quick summary. This is the process for achieving an electrical safe working condition, which can be your foundation for developing your own programs naman. Okay, first is determining all the possible sources of electrical supply. Okay, kasi minsan mayroong backup eh. Okay, and lalo na ngayon, dumadami yung mga gumagamit ng mga solar panels, di ba? And there are incidents in power utilities where the power utility, the lineman will work on the line, papatayin nila yung sirkito on their end, aakyat yung lineman nila, makukuryente. Yun pala, on that same circuit, there is a house or a building that's generating power from solar and naka-net meter. Meaning, should say, naka-connect siya dun sa grid. And since namatay yung power on the line side, on the supply side, siya ngayon yung nagde-deliver ng power to the linya. And lalo na kung napakalapit ng lineman to the source, makukuryente din siya. Okay? So you have to identify all the possible sources. Hindi lang yan parating isa lang or iisa lang. Okay? And then you interrupt the load, okay, by disconnecting devices. So again, it's always or commonly the breaker. The breaker it serves as your disconnecting means and your overcurrent protection and circuit. But it's not always like that. Diba? Minsan may mga fuses lang hindi nagamit. Okay? And then ensure, lalo na yung mga luma, ensure na talagang nag-disconnect yung device mo. Okay? So talagang nag-open yung circuit. And on the prior slide, as I've said, you apply or you use the lockout-tagout device. Okay? So nag-disconnect ka na, nilock mo na siya. Okay? Papasok na ngayon yung sinasabi ko earlier that is there still an energy present in the circuit? So kukuha ka ngayon ng pang-measure ng voltahe. Okay? So you test ngayon, you have your test instrument to the ground, to line to ground. Okay, line to line, may voltahe pa ba dito? Okay? So, siguraduhin nyo. Visually, nag-disconnect. Lastly, you ground. Okay? So, you connect the three phases, the three lines to ground. So that, for accidental, yun nga, kinon, ibinalik yung breaker. Nandoon yung tao. So, hindi yung tao yung makukuryente. All of the energy, all of the current will now be directed to the earth or to the ground because of your grounding device. Okay? So that's again gonna be additional protection to the person. Okay? So, well, again, as I have said, this is a basic. This can establish the foundation of your ES program, but it's going to be up to you how to improve from here, depending on your particular situation in your respective facilities. And also here, the work permits, okay? We do this, but of course, again, make sure that the work permits are being reviewed and approved for work by qualified person kasi sila yung nakakaintindi. Okay? They understand the job, they understand the circuit, okay, guided by your diagrams, yung mga plano. Of course, in the assumption na updated yung yung mga single line diagram nyo, yung mga electrical design nyo na hawak-hawak sa mga planta. Because if not, biglang meron palang load doon na additional, aksidente rin yung mangyayari doon. And the people who knows this are your LEPs or the qualified persons sa facilities nyo. ETEs, so I've kinda enumerated that na kanina. Okay, so again, part of our responsibilities are employers to provide PPEs, and not only provide, but PPEs that are appropriate for the job and tested for the job. Okay, tested as in one certified by the manufacturer. Okay, so prior to buying, di ba, you will qualify the PPE. You look at the specification, you look at the certification. And the good thing with us here in the Philippines, our government via itong Oshc Center is active into this. They're established a testing center diyan sa Quezon City, our host today, providing testing and certification for these PPEs. So yan sila Sir Dennis pagka electrical. So yan, we go through them. And you just go to their website, makikita nyo na doon, they publish there the approved PPEs in the Philippines, and doon kayo magsimula ng pipiliin nyo ng mga equipment. Okay? And in a way, you have it's gonna give you some level of confidence, okay, na okay, this kind of PPE will really work on my application. Okay, all the requirements: head, face, neck, chin, eye protection, okay, hearing protection, yan. And then in rubber gloves, so AC, DC, and plus. Diba, pag bumibili kayong rubber gloves, lagi lang sinasabi, class 0, class 0, and ito yun. Ito yung pinanggagalingan nun. Okay? So, maximum AC use. So, say distribution inside the building or factory, minsan mga 4160 So you'll use class 1. Pagka sa entrada, yung first private pole ninyo, maybe kung outside Metro Manila, that's probably class 13.8 kV, so class 2. If you're in Manila, 34.5, so class 4 ang gagamitin nyo dyan. If you're doing that work from the first private pole to your main switch gear, so that probably is the rubber gloves na kakailangan nyo. Foot protection, as I discussed kanina. Ito, don't I'd say na, usually, mga planta, one size fit all when they look at provide footwears or safety shoes dun sa mga employees nila. Please pay special attention to your electrical personnel. What they require are EH-rated shoes. Kasi nga, involved sila sa kuryente. So they have to have those electrical hazard-rated shoes, which is tested up to 18,000 volts. That's in accordance to ASTM standard and even our Oshc Center. Okay, so make sure there's that particular testing. So make sure they're protected well. And of course, the dielectric footwear, whenever they're going to be handling equipment, especially mga high voltages, kailangan nila yon. You have to protect them. Okay? And then the clothing, our class suit, yan, of course, pag heat, merong special coating for that. Chemical spills, splashes, meron particular, and sa electrical, meron din. Mga apparels, yan. So, you'll see here, this is a table from the NFPA, and you'll see the governing standards. Okay, so again, we chose here NFPA ASTM again because we are medyo ano natin dito sa Philippines is patterned after the US standard. Kaya mapapansin niyo puro American standards to. ANSI Z89, ASTM, okay? So, ayan yun. And then more other equipment, okay? Na iligay, blankets, covers, rods, okay? So, hand tools, so ayan. Ito, other precautions, obstructed view or work area. I mentioned kanina, in most cases or in many cases, our electrical rooms are not that well lighted. So, do not do those or kung talaga, provide lighting. Okay, yung mga temporary lighting like torch light, flashlight. Okay, they need to see eh. Baka mamaya may maliit na naka-stick doon, eh that's an ungrounded wire naman pala or an ungrounded line. Okay? So, delikado rin yung tao natin. In the same way, on confined or enclosed workspaces. Okay? Protective shields, barriers, and also somebody standing guard. Okay? Nakuryente na pala yung tao. Okay? And nobody knows na nandun na pala siya. Malalaman na lang, uwian na o nasan si ganito, nasa ganyan, hindi na nag-report since lunchtime. Pagtingin dun sa electrical room, nakabulagta na pala siya. Right? So we gotta put those in our safety programs. Okay? Ayan. And a qualified person, so it's got to be well-trained. Okay? If you're not licensed, supervised, or guided by a licensed electrical practitioner as defined by our PEC. An updated and correct single line diagram should always be available. Okay? Kasi siya kasi makapagsasabi sa atin anong meron, what to expect in that particular circuit. And of course, the maintenance requirement. The manufacturers of your equipment, they will be the best person or best source, okay, to give you instructions on how to maintain their equipment because they're the ones who design it, develop it, manufacture it. So they're the best person to tell you how to do this maintenance. And the good thing is, I know most, if not all of these manufacturers provide training, especially kung malaki project nyo sa kanila, you can demand for these kinds of training from them. Okay? And okay, maintain your overcurrent protective devices. Number one, that's your protection. The circuit breakers, the fuses. Okay? The spaces should be free from clutter. Okay? Hindi yung may nakaharang sa panel, bago mo pa mapatay yung breaker, dain mo pang bubuhatin. The grounding and the bonding, very important. Okay, it's got to be checked regularly. Okay, yung connection to the panel board, connection to the equipment, and laging nakakalimutan yung actual connection to the earth with through the grounding rods. Ayan. Okay, it's being checked. Baka mamaya putol na pala yung wire edi floating na rin yung yung buong facility mo. Right? So it's being measured. Okay, there are testings, standard testings for this, measuring the resistance. Okay, required on the grounding rod. Okay, that resistance can't be so high. Okay, otherwise, parang hindi ka rin connected to the earth. So you make sure the testing is being conducted by qualified personnel. Okay. And the guarding, the protection as shown on this picture, there's protection around the equipment so that hindi basta-basta malalapitan by unqualified people. Okay, and there's also signage telling the danger or the hazard that can be present with going near the equipment. Warning signs, as I have said. Identification of the circuits. And let me add here, bago pa makalimutan, okay, arc flash. Again, the PEC1, dati, tubra na sa atin yung mga signs like this. Okay? But now, PEC requires that that equipment be tagged, switchgear, motor, be tagged on the arc flash hazard. Okay, so there be that hazard showing the incident energy, the category, the required PPE, the identification of the equipment, and who to contact if there are questions or clarifications needed on that particular equipment. So don't be surprised if your OBOS or the CP engineers or electricians, when they do the inspection in your facility, or even DOLE, okay? When they visit your facility looking for this, sasabihin nyo, don't answer na, dati naman wala, bakit yan hinaharap nyo? It's because PEC now mandates the installation of those signs on those particular equipment. And again, we'll start on that calculation of your engineers. And hahanapan ka pa rin yan ng boundary and so on and so forth. Enclosures should be kept free of materials. Okay, so sometimes sa katagalan hindi nabubuksan, okay, binabahayan na pala ng ibon, okay, or daga. So ang daming mga ano doon, kung ginawang bird's nest, and that's gonna be a fire hazard also to you. Okay, it's only able to deliver the required current, but it's also able to handle the temperature. Okay, that's gonna be present. Laging magkasama yan. Flow of current, there will be increase of temperature. The higher current that you allow to flow in the conductor, the higher the temperature of your conductor will be. Okay, directly proportional yan. So make sure that your wires and cables are able to handle those things. Battery and battery rooms. So uso ngayon yung mga call centers, BPO, data center. Okay, and now also the energy storage devices. Okay, so there's an increasing use of batteries. As we all know, these batteries can have chemicals in them. So there's got to be proper ventilation and eye or body wash, okay, nearby. Okay, huwag kadikit kasi makukuryente. So nearby, so that in case of accidents, yan, mahuhugasan ng operator yung whatever yung natalsikan ng chemical sa katawan niya. Tools and equipments, hindi basag. Okay, and I see a lot of this in construction. Bukas yung wala namang faceplate. Okay, yung saksakan na lang talaga yung nandoon, or worse, hindi pa ginagamitan ng plug, yung wire, yung dalawang plug, the wire, yun na mismo sinasaksak in the outlet. Paghihiwalayin lang nila yung dalawang CO. Okay, so do not allow that. Okay, so it's got to be always covered for protection kasi sa loob nun, nandoon yung mga bare wire. So malalagyan ng contamination, foreign objects, which can be flammable, and that's gonna start the build-up of fire. Okay, tools, grounding equipment, hot sticks, that's like ito, kung talagang hindi mo malalapitan, but you need to operate it, you need to have a hot stick, okay, and also you should have that rescue tool, okay. So yung rescue tool kasi, say, nakukuryente yung tao. Okay? Hindi ngayon siya sustain yung contact niya doon. Huwag ka susugod on the person and grab him and with the intention of pulling him. The moment that you touch him, okay, damay ka, kuryente ka na rin. So don't go near him. You get that rescue tool, which is similar to this hot stick, may pa-curve lang yan sa dulo, and use that to pull the person away from the energized equipment. Okay, don't be gung-ho, okay, on rescuing the maski pa parang sa eroplano, when you take a flight, di ba, katabi mo yung anak mo, the instruction there, in case of emergency, ikaw muna yung magsusuot ng respirator, and then you help yung infant or the toddler beside you. The same way, you protect muna yung sarili mo, and then you rescue the person. Okay? So these things also has to be maintained. They've got expiration because they are made up of polymers. Okay, so eventually they will crack, exposure to environment. So nagde-deteriorate din yung insulation nila. Tools, footwears, yeah, any plastic or any polymer. Eventually the hard hats, sometimes some companies would just use their hard hats for 2 years. After that, buo o hindi, palit. Because the plastic or the polymer material deteriorates. Okay, inspection can be visual. It has to be both visual and testing. Okay, especially on the dielectric strength, you test that. Going on now to the last few slides. So you inspect, you test, and again, I mentioned earlier, grounding. Very, very important. Okay, lalo na when you're doing tests or works. So ito, last 3 slides. So eliminate the hazard. That's the first priority. Again, okay, work practice controls, safety rules, expectations, training, education, yan. And then engineering, follow this. And then always last is the PPE. Okay, so I'm sure you know this as safety practitioners. The same thing applies. Some samples of warnings, okay, awareness that you can use in our facility, the lockout tag out there, workplace safety, okay, some checking questions there. And I leave you with this 10 golden rules of electrical safety. This has been crafted by IIEE and Meralco. So we promote this. Number 1, complying with all applicable industry technical standards, design, installation, operation. So I've shared some, I think I shared with you 4 or 5 on this presentation. Treat all electrical systems as energized. Palagi yan. Okay? So, yun yan, hindi mo malaman eh. Patay na nga yung breaker, but it still contains some stored energy. So, treat it as energized. All electrical equipment are guarded and appropriately grounded, even sa bahay. As simple as your refrigerator, it's got to be grounded. Okay, protective devices, work with your LEPs, madami na yan. If you don't know in your area, you can go to your city engineers or OBO, or you can consult IIEE, and IIEE has a database of LEPs in areas around the country. Labeling of all equipment and cables. Okay, monitoring of the load. Okay, nag-overload ka na pala. Eh di syempre nag-overheat na yung linya mo or the circuit. Inspection and maintenance, as I briefly discussed earlier, the PPEs, and providing disconnecting means for local and manual isolation of electrical equipment during emergencies. So I leave you with that. And again, thank you very much for everyone. Okay, I'm sure it's rush. Okay, this is actually what 20 hours training in if you from NFPA, okay, or other training providers, right, to get for the comprehensive, but is just to give you a flavor and excite you. Okay, since we're discussing electricity, okay, so we are exciting you to be more safe in your workplaces. So again, it's almost noon time. I leave you with that. Thank you very much and have a good lunch.
Yun, thank you very much po, Engineer Aldous E. Zagire, for that wonderful presentation. So I think ang next po sana is mag-open forum tayo, but siguro quick bio break po muna tayo, no, for 3 minutes para lang let's shake off our legs and bones para stretch muna saglit. So let's give it 3 minutes po. Mag-bio break po muna tayo, tapos balik po tayo dito for the open forum. Thank you.